Let's do it. Back at it again. Caden Colford, Jake Helton, Freddy Hawthorne, soon to come on Last Call. Call it a Monday evening treat, right? And last week was an entire treat in itself, talking about Greyhound sports. We'll first start Wednesday night. Jake and I both had the chance to go to Mackey Arena in West Lafayette to see the #1 team in the preseason poll, the Purdue Boilermakers, face off in an exhibition against our own UIndy Greyhounds. And Jake, in the experience itself, amazing. Absolutely a blast. Mackey rocking. It was sold out for an exhibition. There's not many places in the country that can do that.
Yeah, and Mackey is really second to none. I know we were having the conversation between that and Assembly, and I'm definitely Team Mackey. The paint crew showed up. They were top to bottom stacked in there. It was a crazy environment and really made the call all that much better. And looking to this Greyhound squad, obviously going up against the #1 team in the nation, probably going to lose that matchup. Purdue kind of did what they did, 29 points off of turnovers, 54 points in the paint. That's what you're looking for if you're Purdue. As for the Greyhounds, you did see a lot of bright spots. A transfer, Carmelo Harris, coming from Wayne State. He had 19 points, 5 for 9 from 3. He's going to be a nice three-point shooter this year, but also a nice ball handler. Another guy that I like was Sean Arnold. Looked great down low. Him and Kelvin Amoko are going to pair up very, very, very nicely, especially in the post defense.
And even in just saying that, Jake, 2 of the 3 names that you mentioned were not associated with this Greyhound program even just a few months ago. So it's crazy to think that after last year's rebuild, we're going to look at another team that has to reformat, find its way yet again under the direction of head coach Scott Heady. But you mentioned guys like Carmelo, guys like Sean Arnold, who really performed well. And this Greyhound team against the number one team in the nation in Purdue, while they lose 92-49, solid or bright spots, as you said. Let's talk about those 2 guys first. Sean Arnold was a guy that stuck out to me. He's actually a Ben Davis grad. I knew I'd seen him somewhere. He's a Ben Davis grad, and I myself, going to Southport, while I didn't play, I watched this team game in, game out, play Ben Davis. He was part of that team for BD that had an undefeated season. Southport was a team that came close to doing that. And Sean Arnold, one thing I noticed from his high school game, but he's translated to the college level, is his intensity. And intensity, you can play anywhere, right? It transfers from high school, D2, D1. We saw him really competing with some big guys in there.
Well, one of the biggest questions coming into that Purdue game was, how do they deal with the size of Purdue? They have 2 7-footers. And arguably one of the best power forwards in the nation in Trey Kaufman-Renn. So you're looking at that, like, how do they match up? Sean Arnold was the perfect answer. He played very well down low. Trey Kaufman-Renn did not play well, and I credit that to the defense of Kelvin Amoko particularly, but also Sean Arnold down there helping. They blocked out really good. That was something that I was very glad to see. The better blockouts, if they can carry that into the D2 level and they can rebound how they rebounded against Purdue, I think you're going to see very, very good results. And you talked about the change in the team, a bunch of new faces. That's just NIL. Not necessarily at the D2 level, but NIL, transfer portal, it opens up possibilities that players really never knew that they had. So you're going to have guys like last year, Tucker Tornada, that is going to go and play at a D1 level, and also Brody Whitaker over there playing with him. So the movement up in basketball it's a little bit easier in basketball than it is in football, and I think we're going to continue to see that, but I don't see D2 basketball going anywhere. It's going to be just as good as ever.
One roadblock the Hounds did see was in the scoring column. Just one double-figure score, that being the newcomer in Carmelo Harris. But with 19, shooting 6 for 13, 5 for 9 from the field, this looks like it can be your guy for this Greyhounds.
Yeah, and another guy for the Greyhounds, Gavin Sukup, has just about etched his name into the record book. 72 touchdowns in his short 3-year career. Well, not even 3 full years here with the Greyhounds, but they pick up a big win over Quincy, 49-3, and Gavin Sukup throws 3 touchdowns and is now tied with Chris Mills for the career passing touchdown record. 1 game away. I think we see that beat next week at Southwest Baptist.
And I think we see it beat easily, but you say just 3 years donning a Greyhound jersey for Gavin Sukup. This guy is incredible, and a 49-3 score says everything that you would need to know about the game in Quincy. It was Greyhound domination yet again, and we're starting to get to the point where Greyhound starters are getting out around halftime. And after the 3rd quarter, if it's a close game to that point, right? Which I think is a great thing. When you look into the postseason. We're about 2 weeks away. We have Southwest Baptist this upcoming week and then Upper Iowa to close the season. This means that, well, for one, your team is escaping injury and your team is going to be fresh, right? This is nearly 7-8 quarters that you're saving your body by the end of the season. I think it bids well.
Well, it's really because of this defense. They only allowed 29 rushing yards. No touchdowns, obviously, only 3 points in. The Hawks really never got to the Greyhounds side of the field. I think it was 3-4 times maybe that they made it over there. The Greyhounds had 3 interceptions. 2 of those were by Eli Liapis. Absolutely massive plays at the time. It was, I wouldn't say all Greyhounds just yet heading into the halftime break. There were still a few questions. Quincy's quarterback was, I wouldn't say playing good, but you could see where the Quincy Hawks could come back. They made an opportunity for themselves. The Greyhounds just shut them down in the second half. And I think that's the important part of what you're seeing. They're able to bring the starters out heading into the fourth quarter because the defense only allows 3 points. Gavin Sukup's going to get you at least 20, 28 points a game. So if you're looking at defenses across the land, UIndy is now ranked 5th in interceptions with 14 on the season. And the secondary we talked about as one of the things, the question marks, a lot of changes, losing your big freshman Keith Crowell. Where did they go? Well, they just got better. As the season goes on, they just keep getting better and better, forcing teams to run the ball. They can't run the ball. There's really no answers for this Greyhound defense right now, and that's why we're seeing no touchdowns on the board.
29 rushing yards on 17 attempts on the ground. That is absolutely insane from the Greyhounds, but as we look into these 2 weeks and hopefully after that for Indianapolis, another matchup to watch is going to be Ashland and Findlay, the 2 best in the Great Midwest Athletic Conference. That's the GMAC, as you hear us refer to that on the broadcast, right? Those are 2 teams that are also in the top 25 rankings at the Division II level that the Hounds have played both. We lost to Findlay earlier in the year. We beat Ashland at home. What stakes does that hold for the Greyhounds, and why should we as Greyhound fans pay attention to that GMAC matchup upcoming?
Well, if you look at the rankings right now, Ashland sits 1 spot above the Greyhounds at 11, probably going to move up to 10. There was a loss in the top 10, so they might move up. I think Findlay's actually going to move up to, or flip that, sorry. Findlay is ranked 10. Ashland is 17 right now, could move up. Both of them are 7-0 in conference play, which I think is the biggest thing when you look at this. This is going to decide who wins the GMAC championship. Findlay took down the 2nd best or 3rd best team in the GMAC this year in Northwood with, I mean, it was a pretty easy game, but as you look at this matchup, Findlay has the number 3 scoring defense, only allowing 12 points per game, and they have the number 2 run defense. They're only allowing 46 rushing yards per game, and that was how they gave the Greyhounds issues. They weren't able to run the ball, and that's what we're going to see them do to Ashland. We talk about Michael Shimmick. He's a game changer. That's who I'm looking for to really stick out in this matchup. If he can get in the backfield and make things a mess for Findlay, Ashland's going to stand a good chance of winning the GMAC and moving up a spot in the regional rankings. Right now, the Greyhounds sit at 3 behind Ferris and Findlay. If Findlay loses, number 2 and a home game is all but UIndy's.
Sounds like a plan. Well, it was a good game on Saturday, and on the way home, I think we watched the best World Series matchup I have ever seen in my lifetime. Dodgers were in Toronto for Game 7 against the Blue Jays. Jake, you know, I'm not usually happy about a 6-hour bus ride, but to have that time set aside to watch this one truly was welcomed for what we saw. It was amazing.
I think this is the first time that I've got off the bus and haven't immediately just went home, got in bed, and went to bed. I stayed up the extra hour to finish watching this game. It was just that interesting. And about the time we got to extra innings, I was like, okay, I think the Dodgers are probably going to win this one. But you had a couple close calls. I'm sorry for all the Blue Jays fans out there. It is a tough loss. And I think I saw where their manager has been managing for like 35 years or something and hasn't won. So tough to be that guy. But for Dodgers fans, you go 2 in a row, and it's always nice to see that, and I think Shohei Ohtani might be the greatest baseball player to ever put on the uniform.
And the thing is, you take Shohei, who, as Jake said, very well might be the best baseball player to ever touch a baseball, but behind him on the mound, you have guys like Blake Snell. You have guys like the World Series MVP and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Yamamoto was in extra innings the day after throwing 100 pitches in a shutout start, if I'm not mistaken. and he was down 3-0 against George Springer. Springer, one of the best bats that the World Series has seen, and down 3-0, he comes back, strikes him out. Strikes out a batter of that caliber, gives the bats back to his star-studded lineup, $500 million lineup, and the Dodgers get it done. But, you know, people say that the Dodgers bought the World Series, and you might be able to make that claim. They played so well. They made play after play. And it wasn't necessarily the guys that you would think. Shohei wasn't the one who hit the walk-off or hit the go-ahead. Will Smith behind the dish. Miguel Rojas, a 9-hitter, ties it up to send it to extra innings. Max Muncy was huge in cutting the deficit. He had the solo home run to give the Dodgers an extra to their 2, make it 3-4, which made it a closer ball game, an attackable, approachable ball game. And the Dodgers playing from behind the entire night made this one epic to see.
Yeah, and that Rojas homer was probably the biggest part of the game, in my opinion. And they talked about it on the broadcast because you're not looking at that guy, potentially the worst batter in this lineup. You're already looking to the top. You're looking at Shohei Ohtani. You're thinking about what your pitch you're going to throw him, how you're going to get out of that jam. But no, it doesn't even matter. You don't even get there. Obviously, Ohtani flew out, and it ended up not really mattering that he got to the plate. But Rojas, a massive home run. And like you said, I'm not the biggest baseball fan by any means, and by board hopping for the Indians, it's definitely increased my baseball knowledge, and I do enjoy a nice baseball game, but other than the 2016 Game 7 with the Cubs, I don't know that there's anything else in our lifetime that could top that.
We're thinking about it 3 days later. This is Last Call with Caden and Jake. Freddy soon to come. We're going to talk D1 football, IU, and Ohio State. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. Okay, guys, seriously, basketball and hockey have got to be the best sports around. Speed, skill, drama, 7-game series, they have got it all.
Nah, baseball is the best sport, and that's just a fact, Jace.
You guys are both wrong. It's 100% football. You guys need to get on the football train.
Everyone stop. Why fight now when you can watch us debate on Grand Slam Sports on YouTube on Fridays at 6 p.m. or on Xfinity Channel 1096.
Let's talk 2 of the best in the Big Ten and the 2 best in the country right now. Ohio State and IU holding the number 1 and number 2 spots. And as it sits right now, as we get closer and closer to the end of the college football season, we've talked UIndy. Now let's talk the Big Ten championship. Most likely looks like it's going to be the Hoosiers and the Buckeyes. Caden Colford, Jake Helton, Freddy Hawthorne. Your first thoughts on a number 1, number 2 matchup in the Big Ten championship? Who has the upper hand early, and how excited are you for the prospect of watching this?
It's kind of crazy because I couldn't really tell you who has the upper hand. I think this is one of those games where we honestly just have to wait and see. This has a chance to be potentially the game of the year, potentially a national championship sneak peek. Both of these guys, both of these quarterbacks are in the Heisman race, and then when you look at the receiver core on both teams, on IU, E.J. Williams, Elijah Sherrod, Omar Cooper. Then you go to Ohio State, Carnell Tate, Brendan Ennis, Jeremiah Smith. I mean, both of these offenses are so stacked and so high-powered. I mean, this is going to be a great game to watch, and you really won't know who's a better team until the end of the fourth quarter.
Well, IU coming off another beatdown, this time against Maryland. Jake, I know that you are an Ohio State guy, born and bred an Ohio State fan. You definitely feel like Ohio State has the upper hand, or is it that easy?
I do think they have the upper hand because when I look at this defense, I look at 2 things. The number 2 defense in the nation right now is Iowa, and IU struggled against Iowa. It was 20-15. It was a close game. Iowa had a chance to win that game in the fourth quarter. They're the number 2 defense in the nation. Guess who's number 1? It's Ohio State. They've only allowed 6 touchdowns all year. Let that sink in. 6 touchdowns all year.
Okay.
And we're already 8 games into the season. So they've played more games than they've allowed touchdowns. And then you look at yards per game. They're only allowing 214 yards per game, and that's 3.7 per play. IU lives off of big plays, so I think that's what's going to give them a chance in this game. If they can make big plays over the top and beat Ohio State deep, that's how they beat the Buckeyes. You can't just drive down the field. It was something that we were saying about Quincy against UIndy this weekend. It's tough to drive down the field against a a squad full of 4 and 5 stars.
Okay.
You're going to have to find ways to make big plays, whether that be special teams. That's what we saw last year. Ohio State won the special teams battle. Arguably, that's what won them that game. So it's going to come down to the little details, who's making the tackles, who's not making the tackles, who's making the big plays, and who's stopping those big plays. IU's defense can stand up there. They're number 7 in the nation in yards per game allowed with 248. So they can stay up there and hang with an Ohio State offense that might not be up to a caliber that we saw last year. Julian's saying he can complete the passes, but when you put some pressure on him, that's where you start to see the trouble.
And that's my question. Given both of these defenses perform well, and I know Ohio State kind of sits on its own at number 1, can Ohio State outperform IU offensively? I don't know. I look at this IU team, they're second in points per game, scoring near 40, right at 38.3 right now, and they're the best team in the red zone as well. 96th percentile in scoring in the red zone. That is very, very, very good. With Fernando Mendoza, Freddie talked about the weapons that Coach Cignetti has at the skill spots. I personally feel like IU has Ohio State outgunned offensively, which is crazy to say at this point, but I think it's the truth. I think the numbers tell the story. In the Big Ten, I don't think their schedules have been super different, and IU continues to dominate. I'm on the Hoosier train right now.
I would say the Hoosiers might even have a little bit better of a resume when you look at it all said and done, but AP poll week 1, the preseason, it matters. It's the reason why Texas is still in the argument. That's why they were ranked last week. Obviously a big win over Vanderbilt, but that's what matters, is where you're ranked at first is going to play a big part in that. IU started off in the teens. Now they're moving their way up. They're never going to hop Ohio State for that number 1. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. That's the way football works. It's just not going to happen. But if they beat Ohio State next year, in the years to come, that argument might go out the window. You might not be able to say, oh, they're a blue blood, they're in Alabama, they're in Ohio State, something like that. We're going to rank them above them just because we have more faith in them, we trust them. I don't know. I think this is a much closer matchup than some people may give it, and much closer than I thought originally. Kalon Black, I mean, he's balling out of control. He's like, I think, the 50th best running back in the nation, but that's all IU needs to pair together with Fernando Mendoza. You don't need a number 1 running back. You need someone who can get you 100, 150 yards on the ground, take a little bit of pressure off of Mendoza, and let him throw it deep. I mean, that's how they're going to beat Ohio State, is over the top. I'll say it now. I'll say it next week and the week before the big game. They are going to have to make big plays. 504 yards on offense is going to be hard to stop for Ohio State, but it's definitely a doable thing. We saw them do it against Texas. We see them do it week in, week out. I think Ohio State has the edge, but it's a lot closer than people think.
Freddie, with that being said, Ohio State holding the title and holding and carrying the weight that being the Buckeyes carries. This is a team that's not only thought to be good, but expected to be the best each and every season. Do you feel like this team should be unanimously thought as the best team in the country? Are they head and shoulders above IU?
No, I don't think they're head and shoulders above this Indiana team this year. And if I'm being honest, I think that IU can, beat this team. I think IU is probably the best team in the country, but they can't say that and they can't be confident in that unless they do go in there and they beat Ohio State. If they lose against Ohio State, I think they still make the playoffs, and I think that this could potentially be the national championship game again.
I think so too. I'm excited. And it was funny, we were interviewing Coach Keevers pregame before the Quincy game. He actually brought up a Coach Cignetti quote. I can't remember the quote right off the dome, but it's funny to know that Coach Keevers himself is watching a few press conferences from Coach Cignetti, 2 of the best at their respective levels. Talking Notre Dame, they're up in that conversation as well. And while their season continues on, it seems like their hype is dwindling. Is that fair to say this season, Jake?
I would say so, especially after this game. You go on the road to a 1-8 Boston College, or 1-7 at the time. You only went 25-10. Now, I will say they only allowed 12 rushing yards. Now, that's a bright spot, as bright as they get for a rushing defense. Only giving up 12 yards. They had 5 sacks. Defense played great, but you got to see more out of this offense. And in those big games, can the defense do this? We saw them not be able to limit Texas A&M. They kind of struggled against Miami. Granted, that was earlier in the year, but you got to think about that when it gets later into the season, because those are the teams they're going to be playing. They're not going to be playing 1-8 Boston College. They're not going to be playing Syracuse, who lost their starting quarterback. So when I look at Notre Dame, yes, they're going to make the playoffs. They're ranked 10th right now. There's nobody else on their schedule they're going to lose to. One of those 4 or 5 SEC teams in the top 10 is going to lose at least one game out of their last 4. Notre Dame is comfortably in the playoffs right now, which just comes down to the question, can they answer the bell?
How should we look at this Notre Dame team this year, Freddie? What are you expecting out of them, and is it fair to hold them to that national championship standard?
I don't think that this team will be the same team that made it to the national championship last year. I think that their offense is very concerning. When you look at their defense, this is a great defense. 12 rushing yards. I mean, what more can you ask for out of a defense? You know, they created turnovers in that game. They played their hearts out, but offensively, you cannot score 25 points against a 1-8 team. We need to see more production on that offensive end, and if they can't do that, they will not be in the national championship game.
Thanks, Freddie. That's Notre Dame. That's college football. Coming up, we're going to move to the big leagues. Talk the NFL, talk the NBA after this. 7-1 could only be so good for so long. Colts fall to 7-2 after taking a loss in Pittsburgh by a touchdown. Caden Colford, Jake Helton, Freddy Hawthorne on to talk what has been a remarkable Colts season up to this point, but a current stain coming via Aaron Rodgers and Steelers.
I think a lot of people are going to be really quick to hop on Daniel Jones is back to New York, he's back to sucking. And I don't think that's the case. I'm staying on the Daniel Jones hype train. The Colts had to only turn the ball over 4 times coming into today. They turned the ball over 6 times. You want to beat the Colts, make them make mistakes. That's exactly what they did. They got to Daniel Jones. They were in the backfield almost every single play between Jack Sawyer and TJ Watt on the edge. I mean, it was a bull rush, and the offensive line could not handle it. But now you see what you're missing, and I think that's something. TJ Watt is the defensive lineman, or one of the defensive linemen for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had a good quote last week. He said, "You learn a lot more from a loss than a win." And then I'll counter that with a Patrick Mahomes quote from last night. You can only learn from so many losses. So the Steelers, they finally figured it out on defense. 2 losses in a row, they figure it out, and they come and show it, unfortunately, against the Colts. But I think what's big for the Colts is you hadn't been punched in the mouth. You hadn't had to make adjustments all year. Everything's been working. It's been green. Everything's been going for the Colts. Now you finally get that punch in the mouth. What happens? They don't know how to react. Going into halftime, coming out of halftime, they still didn't have any answers. I don't think the Colts really figured it out until 15 minutes to go in the game, start of the fourth quarter.
That's what it seemed like.
They gave themselves a chance to win, which is important for a Colts fan. You see that if the Colts don't bring their A game, they're still going to have a chance to win, which is very important come playoff time, very important come those last 3-4 games of the season where it might be on the edge of a playoff spot or not. I don't think the Colts are in that position, but those are games you're going to want to win to maybe even put yourself winning the division. I mean, you could be at the top of the division if you win a couple more of those close in-between games. I mean, the Colts could end the season with 4 losses. That's crazy to say, but the Colts could end the season with 4 losses.
It's a new day. It's a new age. Freddie, how do the Colts respond and come back after a loss, making them 7-2 on the season?
I think that their only response is just to move forward. When I look at this team, this is still a great football team. We are not hitting the panic button on the Indianapolis Colts this year. We're not.
Not at all.
And when you look at the final score, we lost by 7 points and we turned the ball over 6 times. I'm not mad at this at all. You know, we played terrible. We should have lost by 30, and we lost by 7. You know, that's something good to look at. Jonathan Taylor only had 45 rushing yards. That's not going to happen a lot. So there's a lot of good things to take away from this game, even though we played terrible.
And a couple of those good things that you can mention, you saw a lot of positives out of Daniel Jones. Obviously, you don't like to see him lose the ball 5 times. That's always going to pretty much always lose you a football game. Daniel Jones still had 342 yards, and this was the first game the Colts had a 100-yard receiver all season. They actually had two of them. Pittman and Pierce made it over 100 yards on the day. So some bright spots in the loss, but like I said, you got to learn from this loss. You have to be able to make adjustments at halftime if you're the Colts. We saw absolutely none coming out in the third quarter, and that's why with about, 10 minutes to go, they found themselves in almost an insurmountable comeback.
Hey, everybody forgets to check their pockets, right? Daniel Jones is just a man, a good one at that, a good quarterback too. But the Pacers not seeing as great of a start to their season as the Colts did, right? Just 1-5 after picking up their most recent win against the Warriors, but glad that weight's off. Glad that weight's off your shoulders. Pacers find one through all kinds of injury trials, and it's a good win against Golden State.
And you'll get to see some of it here, but it was a big comeback win. The Warriors led by 11 with 6 minutes to go. Siakam hit a big three with a minute to go, and then Quentin Jackson sealed the deal. But that's the guy I want to talk about is Quentin Jackson. 25 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists. This guy's a two-way player. He's on a two-way contract with the Noblesville Boom, and he comes out and absolutely booms on the Warriors. I mean, that was a big performance and exactly what the Pacers needed. They needed a third guy to come in and help support Nesmith and Siakam. You're dealing with a lot of injuries right now if you're the Indianapolis Pacers. Benedict Mathurin out, Cam Jones out, TJ McConnell out, Tyrese Halliburton, Obi Toppin, Andrew Nembhard. I'd keep going. There's a couple more, but I'll stop there. You get the point. Pacers just need more time to get their players back. I don't think I'm hitting the panic button on the Pacers. You guys had them in your top 5, but what did we see last year? It was slow until the All-Star break.
Yep.
Then it was all gas, no breaks from there, and I think that's what we're going to see. Pacers just had to figure it out. They haven't had a ton of time. A lot of them have been injured. They're still working on the chemistry. I'm not hitting the panic button on the Pacers. I think they're good, and part of it's going to be because of those two guys on the board right there.
To see Quentin Jackson and Aaron Nesmith play the way that they had. We look at Quentin Jackson himself, 25, Aaron Nesmith with 31. This is a team that's still trying to put things together and has the ability to get better as the season goes on, Freddie.
What I've seen from this, they have to have that next man up mentality, and this shows that. This shows the next man up mentality. You have a two-way player, Quentin Jackson. He immediately comes in and produces, and this is what they're going to need to do until these guys get healthy, until they bring back most of their core players. They have to have that next man up mentality, and dudes have to be ready to play basketball every single night they touch the floor.
Looks like it. How about Quentin Jackson being ready to touch the basketball, touch the floor, and, have his fingerprints all over a big game against the Warriors? Freddie, thank you so much for your insight and analysis today. Now prime time pick, and we're going to talk basketball. We're going to talk football, and we are going to start with Monday night's Lakers at Blazers. Would you like to go first, Jake?
I would. I'm going to go with the Trailblazers. And the only reason I picked this because the Trailblazers beat the Lakers on the road about a week ago. So I'm sitting here thinking, maybe at home they're going to have a little bit of an advantage. Although Luka's averaging like 45 points a game. I don't know how you stop that. I think the Trailblazers figured it out.
You know what? There's Luka. You're also looking at a guy in Austin Reeves who had a, near 50-point triple-double the other day. It wasn't, but he did have a 50 ball, following it up with a few in the 40s. I like the Lakers, just to be different, But we'll look at our second game, Bulls and Bucks in the Eastern Conference. Bulls started out way hotter than anybody thought they would this season, but Giannis is still a top 3 player in the league. Let's not act like he's not, right? And I don't like Miles Turner. He's still bad, and this Milwaukee team isn't going to be the best in the East, but I think they get it done against the Bulls.
I think so too. Actually, I disagree. I think the Bulls.
Oh, do you?
I disagree. I think the Bulls. Shout out to that kid who was in here shadowing us that one day. He called me an idiot for putting the Bulls in my top 5. The Bulls are a very good team, and the Bulls are about to beat the Bucks because the Bucks can't guard anybody. Bucks cannot play defense other than maybe a little bit of Giannis. But if you look at the guards on the team for the Bucks, and then you look at the guards on the team for the Bulls, I think you're going to see a clear mismatch, and the Bucks really struggled last night against the Kings and Zach LaVine.
Who's guarding Giannis? It don't matter, I guess.
You don't have to. Let him score 40 points. You let him score 40 points. He's going to do his thing. You got to shut down the other people around him.
Pacers did it. The Pacers did it. And speaking of the Pacers, they're going to be in Denver playing the Nuggets on Saturday night. And we'll start with you again, Jake.
Yeah, no, I don't like this for the Pacers. Not a great matchup. They just figured things out last game.
Especially right now, right?
Yeah, it's a rough spot. It's going to be tough defensively. I got Nuggets.
You talk about good guard play. Pacers don't have very good big play right now. I don't think their bigs are playing as well as they could against the best big in the league, Nikola Jokic. I'm with the Nuggets as well. So we'll move right along. Final two. First, the Colts at home against the Falcons. Do they get back? Yes, they do. At home, this is a very scary team that is coming off their worst performance on the year. I expect one of their best games this season in Lucas Oil against the Falcons.
It was something we didn't mention, but Pittsburgh is a pretty hard place to play with all the terrible towels and all the yellow everywhere. It's pretty ugly, sore sight for the eyes. But I think the Colts at home, like you said, it's a whole nother game, and I think they win it.
And then finally, Pittsburgh themselves on the road against L.A., the Chargers. Jay Herbo, does he have the upper hand?
This is a trap game for me no matter what. I mean, the Chargers have been all right. The Steelers finally figured out, and I'm going to go ahead and pick the Steelers on this one, but it's going to be my luck that they crap the bed again. Aaron Rodgers will have 3 interceptions, but I'll go with the Steelers.
I'll go with the Chargers. Justin Herbert is my fantasy quarterback, and I'm needing a big, big day out of him. I think he has it. I think the Chargers have it. At home, let's look at the records. Jake, you had me by a game,
I think we
and
went
you
even.
still do. Yeah. Still do. All right, fine. Whatever. See you next week. Last call.